Welcome everybody to this week's Advertisers Watching Ads, the show where people who work in marketing talk about the work of other people who work in marketing.
Are banks necessarily the right people to be preaching this message when the crux of it, they are causing part of this problem?
It does sound a bit weird coming from a bank who are actually part of the problem as well.
I think they get away with that because the lyrics of rap, I guess, come from consumers.
My name is Amy Wright. I am the Global Head of Creative Strategy at Automated Creative. And we've got a fantastic new case study for you this week that has been selected by our partners at Contagious Magazine, voted on by the AWA community online. I want to kick off with introducing our incredible panel of guests this week.
Hello, my name is Virginia Barnes. I am Interim Brand and Marketing Director at Thames Water.
Hi, I'm Nick. I'm a Senior Creative at Share Creative.
Hello, I'm Mary. I'm the press lead at The Digital Voice, but have been in the advertising and marketing industry for around 4 to 5 years now.
Fantastic. So let's get into it and watch this week's case study video.
Trouver un logement pour la rentrée de septembre, c'est la galère de l'été.
À quelques jours de la rentrée, cet étudiant n'a toujours pas de logement.
J'aime papa et maman, mais je vais pas rester éternellement. Je vise un appartement, qu'est-ce que c'est galère décidément. Parcours du combattant, les meilleures offres elles jouent à cache-cache, t'as même pas fait le tour. Tu dors, tu te réveilles, sont partis en un jour. Et puis même quand tu trouves, faut gagner 17 fois le loyer, remplir les dossiers gros comme des dictionnaires. Dans la paperasse tu finis noyé. Et si c'était que ça, j'ai que 17 ans, il manque un 18ème. Plus d'un an d'envoi et de visite, j'aurais dû commencer à chercher depuis la 6ème. C'est désespérant, surtout ceux qui habitent en IDF. 900 € pour 15 mètres carrés, c'est un appart ou c'est un ring IBF. On n'est pas bête, mais venez on se donne les bons plans.
Let's move to the vote. Marks out of 5 based on the evidence you've seen so far. Oh, we're going to go through.
Just on the campaign alone, I'm going for.
Okay, so we've got 2 4s and a 3. So this week, our case study comes to you from BNP Paribas, and it is called Get a Flat, and it ran in France. So kicking off with kind of initial opinions on this, what was your kind of initial reaction when you watched the video?
I think the creative execution of using customers' words to create the rap and putting it on TikTok is just really clever. It's really fresh. I think it's really interesting. I was chatting to a friend about this, and apparently it's to do with the fact that laws in France particularly favour tenants, which is great, but it means that the quid pro quo of that is that landlords demand very high deposits up front. So obviously as a young person, it makes it really difficult to try and find a new place to live because you have to find a huge bunch of money up front.
I think I really like it. This is ultimately, it's a bank that are really trying to show their human side and sort of targeting a really specific problem and a really specific group of people. I think these days banks tend to come across as sort of quite disconnected from their customers. BNP are trying to sort of understand their audience and their struggles and really try and help raise awareness of this sort of wider economic issue and with these offers that they're offering.
So I loved the campaign. I loved how they leveraged social media, especially TikTok, if they're targeting Gen Z, and how they're addressing real issues. And it's a bank at the back and having a rapper make a song out of the comments. So I think it was really interesting to see how they're leveraging all the interest, anything that can engage Gen Z as a consumer.
I do question whether BNP Paribas have the right to do this. It's trying too hard. Do they have the credibility to do this, or does it appear a bit naff for them as a sort of well-known high street bank to be doing this? And I genuinely don't know that. That's a cultural context question that I don't know the answer to.
The whole campaign is supporting this deal that obviously helps the young people, but it's a wider, more sort of wider economic issue around, are banks necessarily the right people to be preaching this message when the crux of it, they are causing part of this problem with high interest rates and putting those difficulties in place. So yeah, for me, it felt like it almost would have been stronger coming from sort of a youth charity or an organisation maybe doing a little bit more to help youth people. Obviously the offer's great, but could they maybe do a little bit more to to help these people and these first-time buyers.
It does sound a bit weird coming from a bank who are actually part of the problem as well. But I think according to Gen Z's perspective, I don't know how would they take it? Like they'd see the bank as being really worried about them, or like doing something that is actually solving a problem that they're facing. So might be aligned or keen towards them in an emotional way.
Do we think it kind of makes light of quite a serious situation? I mean, what are your thoughts around that?
I think it does. I think it laughs with the viewer at what is a very difficult situation. I think they get away with that because the lyrics of rap, I guess, come from consumers. They're laughing at the situation. So I think the bank are allowed to use that language because it's borrowed from real people who are already talking about that themselves. My question is, did it deliver commercially? What was the return from this? Another question I have is that the offer, I think, is 20% off the deposit. So BNP Paribas will subsidize your deposit for a new place to live, which is great. But is that competitive? I don't know. Like, is that a standout product versus the market? You would have thought if you've gone this hard on the execution, you want to make sure that is significantly better than what your peers are doing. But you would hope so, that they have a standout product to sit behind it, sort of to back up this execution. But without it, it would be a bit style over substance.
Looking at the case study in particular, it's really interesting that they don't necessarily reference any success of the product itself in that case study. At no point do they reference a drive-in opening of new accounts or whatever it might be, which is quite an interesting point. Why isn't that there? A case study like that, you'd think they'd be sort of shouting about it. So maybe it necessarily didn't quite hit the mark. The other point on that is, whilst the comments are massively positive, it'd be interesting to go through and see just how many of them are strictly about BNP and not necessarily the actual campaign execution. I think there's a couple at the end of the video. The very last comment on the case study is that I think I'm going to switch banks. Not that I have switched banks. I think I'm going to switch banks. There's a couple of moments in the case study where they scroll through the comments and it's, oh, this is great, this is brilliant. A lot of that is referencing the execution, which it's fantastic. But are they necessarily driving the results they need to? And I mean, that comes down to the initial brief, the initial goal of BNP. They may not have been driving that. They may have purely done this from a brand awareness point. From that point of view, they've absolutely smashed it. They've done a really great job.
So I saw that the completion rate was like 17%, but I wondered what was the deliverables behind that? Was it just the new bank openings or what they're looking for? If it's brand awareness, yes, they've killed it. But I don't know how many people actually converted to opening a new account in the bank or the whole program, or what solution are they providing, even if they're raising awareness towards a problem, but what's the solution?
Obviously, this is a very, very targeted campaign. It sits very squarely on that kind of Gen Z, new to the market, actually student type audience. Why are they going after them in the first place?
When I have worked on a little bit of banking in the past in the UK context, the student market's always worth capturing because people don't switch that often. So if you can get people when they're young, they're more likely to stay with you. Students is a smart play because of who they become eventually. So that's why you would target them. But I think your question about how does targeting students impact their wider customer base? And that's the thing with banks, is that they have a very wide customer base. You know, they're for most people most of the time.
For the wider audience, it might be a point where they see that their bank is aligning with the real social issues in the society, even if they don't know what they're providing and what the solution is, but they're doing something for them that might have like a positive impact. But I think it's true that they're targeting students because people only open accounts and then they never switch. So that's really interesting to see what effect, what perspective their wider audience would have.
This is obviously high production value and it looks great, but you can't be smashing these out every couple of days, you know? So what's the plan? You know, you could invite people to share their stories, like what they're doing, and join in, participate in what's happening in your life or your struggles, or there could have been more of that sort of thing. And by making it so polished and perfect and like a high production value piece of content, it's not going to get people UGCing back to it. There are lots of different ways this could still go. There's something in it that's really lovely. I just hope that they do more with it, you know?
If I was to make you marketing director for the day for BNP, would you sign off on the campaign in its current form? Would you put your money behind it? Ooh. Thank you for everyone for watching this week's episode of Advertisers Watching Acts. Massive thank you to all of our guests this week. And we will see you next week for our next episode. Thanks.